Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm going to wait a couple more seconds to let everybody in, then we'll get started. Hi, Pauline. Yes, welcome everyone. My name's Brenna Posey. I'm an OCD team member. I also have OCD myself and have gone through our NOCD ERP therapy. It's changed my life, and we're so excited to host this virtual event with our partner and friend, Chrissie Hodges. I'm sure you guys have heard of her. She's awesome, has OCD herself, and just has done a lot for the OCD community as a whole. And yeah, I'm just going to let her take it from here and introduce herself. But again, we're so happy to have you. And we have here, if you look at the bottom, there's a Q&A box. So the last 30 minutes of this hour, Chrissy's going to be asking or answering your Q&As. So just about her story or OCD or taboo intrusive thoughts. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and I'll let Chrissy take it from here.
Okay. Thank you for having me, NOCD. I love working with y'all and partnering with y'all. And, as many of you know, Stephen Smith, the founder, is just so near and dear to my heart. He's like, I can't tell if sometimes he's like my brother or my son, one of the two. But I love him, and I just really appreciate being here. And for all of you that are here, I'm honored to be able to speak with you. There's nothing more important to me than community, and I really hope that comes through today as I'm sharing my story and talking a little bit about what I do, why I do what I do, and especially the most passionate topic that I have, which is taboo, intrusive thoughts. And I'll share a lot about that. I'm excited about the Q&A. I don't often get to do Q&As because I'm typically talking to you through my YouTube channel. And so to be able to answer some of your questions and interact with you one-on-one is really special to me. So let me introduce myself first. I am an advocate for OCD. In particular, I talk about pure OCD, which is also the name of my memoir, Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. I started doing advocacy a lot. I mean, I'll get into this in my story. About 12, 13 years ago, when I was really struggling with the stigma and the shame around my own experience, which I'll share. And I really just wanted to find other people that understood what it was like to have intrusive thoughts. I felt very lonely and isolated, and I started my YouTube channel. So if you want to follow me on YouTube, it's at Chrissie Hodges. I have all kinds of videos about all kinds of intrusive thoughts and stuff. And really from there felt this massive connection to people all over the world. I became a certified peer support specialist, and I worked in the state institution for 2 years. And then I went out on my own, and I have a private practice where I work with people one-on-one, providing peer support. And I run 8-week closed groups right now. By the way, they're open for registration. So go to my website if you're interested in being part of that. And recently last year, I created an online community specifically for peer support. And you can join that community. It's $35 a month. And you get weekly support groups, weekly one-on-one peer support. I host events, all kinds of stuff. And I would love to have you part of that community. And I'm also going to be opening up an app for that in the next couple of weeks. So that's who I am. That's what I do. But how did I get here? So let's start. I have had OCD since before I could remember. I would say that it really kind of broke through for me when I was 8 years old. I was in third grade, and the first intrusive thought that I had was the fear of vomiting. Someone had gotten sick in my classroom, and this was such a almost like break in reality for me. This had happened before. I had gotten sick before, but someone got sick right beside me, and I had an absolute panic attack to that. I was like, I jumped out of my seat onto the floor. I was frozen. Y'all know what it is like to have kind of that moment of, oh my God, the world is ending, panic and anxiety. And I was terrified. I couldn't move, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and everybody was staring at me, and it all of a sudden felt very embarrassing. This is when I started to do some breathing stuff. I started thinking to myself, you've got to do something to get out of this, which was when compulsion started. So breathing rituals, things like that. And then when I finally kind of came to out of that initial haze, I know what you're talking, I know you know what I'm talking about, like that big haze moment, the gut bomb. My teacher took me in the back, and as I'm trying to make sense of what happened, the fear of the throwing up was there. But in my brain, my little 8-year-old brain, oh, I wish I could hug her, was I must have done something wrong or bad for this to happen. And I was in a very religious family. So the only connection I could make is, oh no, I must have sinned and God is punishing me. And that's when the religious scrupulosity started for me. And that was the overarching theme for me for the next 12 years. So after that, and also I think it's really important to share with you that I did not tell anyone about this. Even at 8 years old, I knew not to tell my parents, meaning I had a very strained childhood with my parents. And at that point, I knew that it would not be taken seriously. It would have been blown off. And I was also very scared because of the religious scrupulosity. And so I did not tell anyone. And I told myself I will never share this information. So, of course, that lended to me going every day, please let me do everything good enough that this is going to go away. And I know so many of you understand what that means. Please let me just wake up and this is gone. We hold on to that hope that we're going to do good enough, or we can be a good enough person, or that enough time will go by and then we'll wake up and it will all be gone. And that was my lifeline of hope, which obviously did not come true because OCD does not just go away. So from there, compulsions, mental compulsions no one would have ever known, became an everyday part of my life every single day. Now, the other thing, and I think this is interesting, I hear it all the time, is I just thought maybe everybody dealt with stuff like this. And I thought people are just really good at hiding it. So I need to double down on how well I hide this. And that kind of born into this, I need to make sure the world sees me as this perfect person. So I need to be this perfect religious person. I need to have perfect grades and all these friends. And so if my life looks perfect enough on the outside, no one will suspect that I'm dealing with this weird, bizarre thing on the inside. Well, y'all, things took a turn for me when I was about 12 or 13. That is when the fear of vomit, which, still is part of my life, actually, turned into dark, ugly, just sinister, intrusive thoughts, demon possession. I started having intrusive thoughts about my pets, sexual thoughts, harm thoughts, incest thoughts. And, these were when I look at it, when I reflect on it, it's kind of like it was this reel of images, that would go through my mind like a preview to a movie. You know what I mean? They would come and I would be like, what the fuck is going on? But they would never really stick. And I do remember one that stuck, that almost stuck. It was fear of harming children. I was sitting in this van and all of a sudden someone threw a stuffed animal at a kid. Like that I was on vacation with a friend or something. And I looked over and the girl's face like squished up before she started crying when she got hit. I started laughing. I mean, her face looked funny. I'd probably laugh today. But as soon as I laughed and then she started crying, I thought, oh my God, you want her to cry. You just laughed at someone. And I jumped out of that van. It wasn't moving. We were still there. I jumped out of the van and I remember running and my friend screaming at me, like, where are you going? And I just bent over and I was like, I had that moment, that gut bomb of, you're an evil, awful person. And then when I got back in the van, we had to sit for 6 hours and I just put my headphones on and I remember just looking out the window and being like, don't get near the kids. I was as far as I could. That one did not stick, but I remember thinking something is very strange. And then it hit me, the big one hit when I was 14, and that was sexual orientation OCD. Now, I grew up in a household that was not sex positive. It was, we did not talk about sex. In fact, and if you even had those feelings, you were a whore. I mean, and so, I see now where that lent to that fear. But at the time, it was terrifying to me. This was back in the 90s. And, you know, like the spectrum of, sexuality was not talked about and not accepted. I was in the South, in a very religious community, but I also knew in my own mind, like, I do not care. Like I knew that just internally as a human. I don't care if I'm gay or if other people are gay. I just know that I'm not. And I know that you all get this when I'm telling you. Um, it was just this weird moment of I was this person and then boom, now I'm someone completely different. And that was a very terrifying moment to me. Sexual orientation OCD, no matter how it manifests for you, is very much about a loss of identity. And that's what was so hard. I was struggling with my identity anyway as a teenager. Who doesn't? But then to have that hit and me be confused. And then when religious scrupulosity came in, and basically said to me, like, oh, you thought the vomit fear was bad? Watch this. Now you have to be an even better person, or you're going to get all these thoughts, and now you're going to question your identity. And it was, y'all, for the next 6 years. So this was when I was 14. For the next 6 years, it was just absolute torment. I went in and out of depressive states. I have no idea. We didn't have the internet back then. So it's not like I could go on and Google any of this. So I just lived with this solely by myself. Did not tell a soul. I was in and out of relationships. Like at one point I fell in love and I would be like, this is so weird. Like, how could I fall in love with someone and then have all these weird questions all the time and feelings like the groinal and all of that? It was just utter hell. And I did think to myself, at some point, if this doesn't break, I used to call it like breaking when it would be really bad and then it would be okay. If some point, if it doesn't break and I have to come out and talk to people about this and the vomit and the religious scrupulosity and all of it, I was like, I will just kill myself. And you know what I mean when I say that? It's like suicidal ideation when you're suffering so bad that at least you're giving yourself a way out. And that was so scary to me because I knew I didn't want to die, but I also knew I could not live like this and I didn't know who to tell. So for 6 more years, so in total 12 years, I lived with all of this and really knew who I really was. In fact, I didn't know.
Is it frozen for anyone else? Okay, thanks for letting us know. Let me just message her really fast.
Hi, I'm sorry. Was that me?
Looks like you're back now.
Okay, where did I leave off?
You left off. It was kind of like 2 minutes ago, I would say. Like
Okay.
12, yeah.
Okay. I will restart. I'm upstairs now. Sometimes that happens downstairs, so we should be good. Okay, 12 years. Thanks, Patrick. Okay, so I lived with this for 12 years. Um, I had the sexual orientation OCD, the fear of vomiting, and the religious scrupulosity. Just, I mean, and I knew that I did not want to die by suicide, but for me, it was just this. I also knew that I could not withstand that suffering forever. So when I was 20, my cousin died. And that was a huge loss for me. He was one of my best friends, and it was sudden. He drowned. And I holding up that grief alongside this major mental illness that I had no idea I was experiencing. It drugged me to rock bottom. And the thing is that this was in like 1997. So I didn't know, there was no language or words to talk about suicidality or mental health even. And I know that sounds bizarre, but that's just how it was. I didn't even know how to explain to people every day I'm contemplating suicide. I'm experiencing something so horrible, which was, clinical depression. And, leading up to, I was going home from college, for Christmas break. And y'all, it got so bad. I just thought to myself, I started almost feeling kind of delusional. I was making bargains with God because of the religious scrupulosity, like, give me a sign, magical thinking, give me a sign if you want me to keep fighting, give me a sign if it's over, things like that. And unfortunately, it just got so, I don't want to go into the details. You can actually read my book, and I went into very much detail, but it got so bad. I felt like there was no other choice, and I did attempt suicide. I was so lucky to survive. And I was lucky that I went, I had to go to the hospital. I had to have surgery. And after that, they put me on a hold, and I was put in a hospital, a locked facility, and it was a nightmare. Um, my whole world just collapsed. I mean, I could not believe I was here when a week earlier I was at school and everything was normal to the outside world. And now here I am. I was lucky to be diagnosed with OCD when I was hospitalized. It was not very comforting. They were like, we've never seen anything like this in our lives, but we think it's OCD. And I was able to get on medication, and that was very effective for me. So my symptoms went probably 90% reduced, went back to college, like everything was okay. And when it really wasn't, I was really struggling after that, just with the shame of it all. But then a year later, I relapsed. I got off the medication, relapsed. Y'all know how it is, thinking, well, I know it's OCD, so I can just outthink this. And of course that didn't happen. I was suicidal again. And that's when we had AOL dial up, and I found Dr. Stephen Phillipson's website. Um, and I wrote to him, and he agreed to do phone sessions with me across state lines. And I was able to access exposure response prevention therapy. And, it was very successful. And I was able to, kind of move on and really feel like OCD had been eradicated, but it hadn't been. And this is when I'll move into, because I have about 7 minutes before we start taking questions, I'll move into kind of the next phase of recovery. And this is what I'm very passionate about, and kind of where all of the things that I do in my own practice and the building of this community and partnering with people like NOCD and other places that really focus on community. I felt after that, after being like effectively treated, and I put that in quotes because I was not treated. Um, I did not really enter the phase of recovery that was kind of emotional recovery. I was treated for my symptoms, but I was, I had been traumatized by my experience with suicide and hospitalization, and just the idea of living with this for so long undiagnosed. I had no idea who I was. And the grief, y'all, the grief and the anger that this had happened to me, it was so unfair. Like, why me? What did I do to deserve this? Now I'm mentally ill. I'm so behind on life. Everybody knew what they were doing. And I just found out that, nothing I believed about my religion or who I was true. And so here I am, just, being sent out to the world after treatment and then after graduating from college, and hey, go have a happy life. And I was miserable. I was just drenched in shame, you know, and guilt, what I'd put my family through, which, whatever. That's a whole other, we could have a whole other town hall on that. But so through my 20s, y'all, I was so lonely. I then entered the next phase of, I'm never telling anybody what happened to me. So it was very similar to living with OCD and not talking about it, but now it was after treatment and not talking about it. So I was shaming myself alongside feeling shamed by the whole world from a stigma perspective. My 20s were horrible. I call them the terrible 20s. I didn't know who I was. I had zero worth, zero self-compassion. All I wanted to do was forget OCD. Denial was everything to me. Like, fuck this disorder. I don't want to think about it. I'm cured. And all the while, OCD was now latching onto all other kinds of things, real event OCD, health anxiety. And so I'm struggling. I didn't even know it because in my brain, I'm cured because I went through therapy, right? And I was so angry. I was so miserable. I was a manipulative person because I had no worth. I had horrible relationships. I was mean to people. I was in a horrible place. And when I was in my mid-30s, and then I want to get into the taboo stuff, this was when I relapsed with harm OCD. And y'all know how it is. The harm was just brutal. it was like, and then I started struggling with like, oh my God, these thoughts are horrible, but do I want them? And then it was like, what? So I had really low insight, and then relationship themed OCD was just a mess. And that's when I really realized this is not going away. And I have a choice to make. I can either accept and radically accept that my life is going to have OCD in it, and I can learn to love this person that I am, or I can stay silent, drenched in shame every day, wish I was somebody different, and pretend that OCD isn't walking alongside me and just poking me every day for me to engage with it. And so I went back through ERP. I designed it on my own because it had been so effective before, was very disciplined about doing it. And I was able to work through that relapse in a few months. And that's when I decided to start giving back. I remember Dr. Phillipson telling me, I have all kinds of people that have graduated and and I thought these people are out in the world. I have got to find them. And that's when I started doing advocacy. And to me, since then, community has been everything. I don't know where I would be without becoming a peer support specialist and getting to meet people like you and you sharing your stories with me. Because when people would share about taboo intrusive thoughts, we have a name for it back then, y'all. When people would share their stories about that, their feelings, their shame, their how different you feel, how much you feel like you're not deserving and worthy of happiness. Like I don't even deserve the sun to shine on my face. When I would hear these stories, I would be like, oh my God, like that's right. I had POCD thoughts when I was in my 20s and I didn't recognize it as OCD. And what I did is just branded myself as this horrible person. And the shame from that, it's just like, just bury it and just keep going. And when you do that, and you don't talk to people and you don't meet other people, you start believing that about yourself. And I'm like, feel a little emotional, but like, it is not fair for you to walk around this earth thinking that you are horrible because of these stupid thoughts that you didn't cause. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. I'm like, maybe I PMSed and I'm in perimenopause, so who knows when it's going to come. But like, there's nothing worse than meeting with someone and they have been struggling with like pedophilia theme or harm theme or incest theme or anything. And I'm the first person they talk to, and I'm someone from the internet, that they just saw on my video. Like, I want to like, my whole thing is like, you need to meet other people. You need to see that what you're going through is not just you. And that just because you go through it, that shame, that crippling shame that comes on that tells you that because a thought or an image or a feeling, a real event, something happened in your childhood, whether you were the initiator or whether something happened to you and now you can't get rid of it, that you don't deserve happiness. And I know your OCD is saying, Chrissie, if you only knew, you would not be saying that. But I do know. That's what you don't understand, is that I have been there. I have been to the depths, even in my adulthood, after effective treatment, after becoming a peer support. I have been at the depths thinking with real event OCD, POCD, incest OCD. God, that plagues me all the time. Like harm against my pets, sexual or, against my pets, things like that. I mean, I have been there. And the only thing that really has just healed me is looking into the eyes of someone else and them saying, I get it. I don't even have to explain, because if I have the self-compassion, or if I have the compassion for someone else and I hear their story and I hear things that resonate with me, then I have to start thinking to myself, why am I giving them compassion, but I can't give it to myself? Because I deserve it too. Because if I don't deserve it, then they don't deserve it. And I certainly to hell do not think that. They do deserve it. Because it's odd. I can see that the OCD isn't their fault, but I just can't apply it to myself. With taboo intrusive thoughts, and I know we have to do questions here in a minute, but let me just wrap up with this. God, like the emotion is like waves right now. I don't know why. With taboo intrusive thoughts, you feel like you don't deserve compassion. You feel like you had to have done something to cause this. maybe you tested or checked, right? So maybe like you picked up your niece or nephew and you held them close, testing or checking. Maybe you watched a specific porn. Maybe you brought on thoughts of kids just to see how you would feel about it, because what will happen is that will hook. And then we'll say, you're horrible because you acted on that. And then, of course, once you cross that acting line, because acting is in the eye of the beholder, right? It's almost always checking. But we can't see that. But once you've crossed that line, then all of a sudden that's the barrier. I can't go back after that. And I'm a horrible person. And I can't live with myself. And no one, if anybody knew, they wouldn't be able to live with me. Okay, here's my pitch. My pitch for me to be your friend. No, to be in a community and to know I will understand. I will get you. I want to tell you that you're not alone. And I'm just one person. There's so many other people out there that want to tell you that too. And everything about your OCD is going to tell you that you don't deserve it because of what you thought and the image or the dream you had, or that something actually happened in childhood or teenage years, or even earlier in your life. It is going to tell you you don't deserve it. It's going to tell you that you are the exception. And that in itself is no different than my experience and anybody else's. I know you're probably like, why is this lady screaming at the camera? It is because in the last, I would say 6 or 7 years, community has become everything to me. Everything that I say and do is a reflection of everything that the community tells me and that I tell the community. And it has become the way that I have survived OCD at some of the darkest times in the last 6, 7, 8 years. And I am in recovery. And so that's why I just want you to consider that first step towards becoming part of a community. You're here, so you are part of a community, but reaching out and talking to people, and then taking one step further and believing that you deserve compassion. You deserve love and happiness, because it is possible. And I'm not wrapping this shit up with a bow because it's hard to live with OCD. But what I'm saying is all we can do is every single day figure out how we don't have to walk this path alone. And that's what I want for you. And that's my spiel, and that's my story. And I hope that was helpful. As you can see, I'm very passionate about this. This community is everything to me. I would not be where I am, and I owe everything in my life to the people who've walked alongside me. And so I want to do that for you. And I know all these people here want to do it as well. So with that, I can start to answer questions. So
Yes.
okay, what do I do?
So much, Chrissy. Yes, and everyone continue to write in your questions in the Q&A box. It should be by the raise hand button in the Zoom chat if you want to submit any questions. And Chrissy, if you want to just click the Q&A box,
Okay.
you can see your questions in there, and you can click the answer live button and that should pop up, and then we can go from there.
Okay, I will just start to go down some of the questions. Just FYI, I'm not a therapist. I'm a certified peer support specialist. I cannot answer anything clinical. I can't give any therapeutic advice, and I have to be very careful when it comes to talking about medication and also like what I did for ERP, mainly because we all know how OCD is, right? And we all engage in comparative recovery. And so I just want to be really careful and really mindful that my recovery worked for me. It's not going to work for everybody, and vice versa. So if I do kind of skip over a question or I don't answer, that's the reason why. I just have to be ethically careful from a professional standpoint about what I share. Okay, I'll just start going down. Okay, after going through ERP therapy, were you able to feel confident again in yourself and your morals that OCD made you doubt and fearful of? Oh man, anonymous. I okay, this is why I'm going to struggle in Q&A, because I could answer a question for like 60 minutes. Because me, I like to dig into the whole story. Okay, let me just start and quickly go through this. When I went through ERP therapy, yes, I felt confident in my ability to manage symptoms of OCD. And what that translated to in my everyday life was, oh my gosh, this is an actual illness. I saw that because I could see that by changing my behaviors, that the OCD would quiet down. And so I was confident that like, oh my God, this is an actual illness. So yes, but it was so complex because I was 21 years old at that point. And I had and so then I had to grapple with, I have no idea who I am. And I'll say on top of that, but I don't want to share too much because I know that religion is a very important coping skill for people. But like for me, as far as the religious piece, I also had to question everything about that. And not because OCD is designed to make you question that, but I had religious scrupulosity. And when I found out that I had an illness, OCD, that could be treated by ERP and I could get better symptom wise, that put a big question mark in my mind of the hell have I been doing for the last 12 years, relying on religion to get me out of an illness. And I also had a lot of anger toward that of, and this is not religion's fault, may a little bit be my parents' fault, just FYI, but like I thought religion was there to help me when in fact it had gotten twisted in my OCD and was really harmful to me. So from there, that's why this is kind of a conflict or a complex question. From there, when I talked about my 20s, the 20s really was tearing apart everything that I knew about religion, about morality, about who I was as an individual, breaking all of that down. And then I would say, like, probably in the 30s when I relapsed and stuff, that's when I slowly started building up who I really was. So I did lose a lot of who I was during that time, but in reflection, a lot of who I was when I was living with OCD undiagnosed was just surviving, and having no idea how to live life at all because I was under the thumb of something manipulative in my brain that just established fear around everything. So I hope that answered. Is it normal to have your intrusive thoughts go over and over again in a nonstop loop? So it's always interesting to start a question with, is it normal? And I will tell you why, because when you start a question with, is it normal? It is asking for reassurance. Sorry, Stacy, but it is. And one of the things that you're doing, and what I want to do is validate this for you. What you're doing is wanting to know that your experience is like everybody else's because you're probably afraid that you don't really have OCD. Most people that's what I was talking about earlier when I said comparative OCD, comparative recovery. When we read stories, so you have to be really boundaried and careful in your own and your own behaviors of reading people's stories and listening. Because when we compare ourselves to their recovery, all of a sudden we're gonna, just because we have OCD, we're going to go, oh my gosh, my experience wasn't like theirs. And what does that always take us? Down the route of, oh my gosh, what if this isn't OCD? The secondary fear with intrusive thoughts, especially taboo, is always, what if this is an OCD and I really am this person? That in itself has got to be put into the category of uncertainty. I know that said, we hate that word. And I have strong feelings about that too, but we also have to put that as well into our, into kind of the recovery box, right? I'm going to deal with the theme, and I'm also going to deal with not ever being able to 100% know that this is OCD. So what I would suggest to you and for everybody is that start to look for those little things in our brain that say that, that start off with, is this normal? Does everybody have this? What if I have this and that? Maybe this. Those little sayings are typically pointing us into the direction of we're asking reassurance. And you can have self-compassion around the fact that you just really want to know that this is OCD, because it is scary to believe that it's not and that the thoughts are real. But also, everybody feels that way. So I hope that makes you feel better. I also can't really answer that question anyways because it's a little bit clinical. But I will end with this. OCD will do just about anything to make you question whether it's OCD. So anytime you start with, is it normal or this or this or this, know that it's probably OCD. And that is somewhat of reassurance, but I didn't mean to give it. Okay. I've seen you make posts regarding projecting OCD themes onto loved ones. Oh, especially when it's one specific person. It's just brutal. I've not found a lot of info research on this and was curious in your experience of this and if you felt that ERP still helped. I'm restarting therapy and hoping that this is something I can tackle. I've been projecting my POCD onto my husband, and I'm struggling with this a lot, and I don't want it to ruin my marriage. So what I'm hearing you ask is that you're projecting that your husband is a pedophile. And yes, this is very common. It is, and it is not talked about a lot. And if I'm being real and transparent here, if you've listened to my last OCD stories podcast, which I know Stu was reluctant to put it out because he waited like 8 weeks after we recorded it, because I think he was scared he was going to get canceled. Uh, I a lot of things that need to be talked about, and I think that's why these kind of forums are so good. Taboo intrusive thoughts, projecting onto other people, having intrusive thoughts about your family members, your kids, things like that. People aren't talking about it because they're scared of the backlash. How do I feel about that? It pisses me off. It does. A, because I don't want to be the only one out there talking about this, because how does that make me look? No. But B, these are the things, just like you're sharing here, these are the things that really push people into the closet of believing they don't have OCD, because you're not hearing other stories about this. I can tell you with 100% certainty, projecting your themes onto your loved ones is huge. And the reason why, and I'll tell you this too, because a lot of times projecting things like sexual orientation OCD is really common for this. And people are not going to talk about that out loud, because you know why? They're going to think that, or other people might think they're saying it's wrong to be gay, it's wrong to be bisexual, and things like that. So they're not going to talk about it because they're scared people won't understand, and there's going to be backlash. Now, I get that, and people can't understand. I go into all, like, a lot of my videos that way. But I definitely, there's a call to action for me to other advocates. And if you're on TikTok, go follow me on TikTok. I just started. You only have like 5 followers, but I am going to start talking about these things openly, and I would love your support on this. It is important to talk about these things when you are thinking you're the only person with this theme, and it's usually around taboo. Trust me, you are not. It's just that people are scared to talk about it out loud. So I will give you that assurance. You're not alone. I have had the intrusive thought about my ex-husband that he was a pedophile. It kind of started with thoughts for myself about his son. And then my brain went, oh, this is POCD. Get over it, Chrissy. But then all of a sudden I was like, but what if he's a pedophile? And that was terrifying. And it also, I couldn't talk to him about it because I was scared. I was scared he was going to think I was calling him a pedophile. And so I had a bit of low insight about that, actually, and started looking for proof. And so that was really tough, but I was lucky to be able to get some therapy around it and to do some exposure response prevention. So yes, exposure response prevention absolutely can be used towards this, and it absolutely can be used towards any theme. It's just, having a really good therapist be able to take whatever you're struggling with and turn that into an exposure, and trusting the process. So that is it. Okay. Have you ever experienced having one thought and then having a feeling of anxiety? You connect with it, and then the anxiety of that feeling comes instead of the thought, and it makes it seem really real. That is that's a little bit of a roundabout question. I don't want to be around a person and I'm scared to actually feel this way. Do you know what I mean? Okay, I don't know what you mean. This is very like circular. If you could drop it, like make it a clean question. I'm just like, I'm getting caught up in the circle of it. So, yes, make it a little cleaner and let me answer it. Okay, Chrissy, first of all, thank you for your YouTube channel. You're welcome. First OCD diagnosis was in my 30s, false memory, POCD. Yikes, 2 horrible ones. I'm so sorry. I don't worry that I'll become one and act on it. I worry it could be true, and I probably acted on it in the past and blocked it out. Yes. How can someone reconcile thinking they've done some of these awful things while at the same time not being worried that they would act on it now? Thank you for always speaking out. Great question. Great question. Okay, so first of all, I want to direct you to my YouTube channel. I have done 2 videos now with Johnny Say. And we do talk a lot about things that have actually happened. So I do want to give you a little bit of a trigger warning. So if you're worried about this in false memory, it could be triggering to you, but it absolutely can apply to false memories too. False memory is so, it's fragile. It's like, it's like a slippery slope, because, then you're starting to read all these things about like suppressed memories and stuff like that. And that can get really tricky. And it's just, then you just start to doubt who you are, right? So one of the things I want to point out that we talk about with Johnny on there is we talk about like, let me read it again. How can someone reconcile thinking they've done some of these awful things? Well, first of all, reconcile. So this is what we talked about in the video. It's the second video, actually. So I hope this makes sense. First of all, you have to see where OCD is interacting with this. Okay, because when you're having something that is very like, false memories obviously are false memories, and you're going to always worry that there is something that you're not remembering. Radical acceptance around that. Radical acceptance is really big for OCD, even though we fucking hate it. Radical acceptance is accepting what is going on right now and past and future, and knowing we can't change it, but knowing that we're strong enough to be able to handle it. With OCD, the idea that you are probably always going to believe that there's a memory that you're not going to be able to remember is probably always going to be triggering. Okay. And that is just the reality. We want them all gone, but that is actually part of your pattern. And that's the beautiful thing about OCD is that it's so patterned. As long as you can figure out the pattern, it's like almost figuring out code or something like that. Then every time you can go back, it's always going to be the same. The problem, what gets us in trouble is the feelings. It's the emotions connected to it, because we just in our minds of OCD are never going to be able to believe that emotions aren't real. But with OCD, emotions can actually be intrusive. And it is like someone's lit a fire under them. So if you think about these past memories or false memories, I'm sorry, and you have this feeling of anxiety and shame, I guarantee you every time you think about them, you're going to have anxiety and shame, and it's always going to feel the same, and it's always going to be huge. That's what you want to target in exposure response prevention. Having the feelings too, so you can make them irrelevant, right? The other thing, and this is what I wanted to reference in the video, is you've got to see where OCD, and this applies to everything. You have to see where whatever is happening right here, OCD is coming down on and just grabbing onto, and now you're stuck in the two of them. The goal is always to pull the OCD apart, so you can see where OCD is causing havoc, and you can see this false memory piece over here, this real event, this POC all over here. You got to pull them apart and then target the OCD. So I hope this is making sense. But whenever you revisit this, you might always have the same feelings, and OCD is going to want to fuse with it. But the goal of ERP is to pull them apart and to be able to see these things as two separate things. Regarding sexual orientation OCD, y'all, I still get the groinal when I see boobs. That is just the way it is. But I know that OCD is fused with sexual orientation for me. I'm always going to feel the same. It's always going to have the same impact and emotions for me, right? And so my job is to pull them apart and see them differently. Okay, I'm always going to have this experience, but I also always know that OCD fused with that. And so I can safely believe that it is OCD, not engage with it, make it irrelevant, and move on with my day. So I hope that helps. Again, I told y'all when I do Q&As, like I literally could talk on questions for like an hour. So I'm trying to go through as fast as I can, but I hope this information is resonating. Okay, my pedophilia OCD feels so real. Yes. Arousal feelings of attraction, dopamine. Yes. Feelings that I want these thoughts. It feels so real. Can you relate? 100%. I also struggle with porn addiction, and I feel like I've caused the thoughts. So a couple things. Okay. First, if your intrusive thoughts did not feel real, you would not engage with them. So let's just always remember that. That's not going to make it go away. But if it didn't feel real, if you didn't have all of this, then you wouldn't even think about it. And that's something that I try to remind myself of. When I finally went into treatment, I was having arousal feelings, the groinal feelings, 24/7. They were in my dreams. I was having orgasms in my dreams. I mean, everything. And I was so scared. I was like, there's no way treatment is going to stop these feelings. I'm entrenched with them. But remember, treatment is not designed to stop OCD, to stop it all. Now I'm going to tell you something, Anonymous. It is so unfair that you have pedophilia theme. It is so unfair to have some of these taboo. It's unfair to have it all, but it's so unfair to have these horrible, intrusive thoughts that are completely against your morality any of that, we always feel like, well, at the end of the day, if this and this and this, there is no end of the day when it comes to incest and necrophilia and bestiality and pedophilia. There's no end of the day. I'm not going to put my feet up and be like, maybe I am a pedophile. No, right? That's why it's just so unfair. Um, and I wanted to emphasize that because I think we don't hear that enough. What we hear is the themes don't matter. And everybody that says that can fuck off. Sorry, sorry, but it's true. I get so mad about it. They do matter. They do matter, and research points to that shame is a barrier to treatment. And shame can get in the way, especially, and I talk about this again with Johnny on my YouTube, so please go watch it. When you feel low insight. Low insight, meaning I'm having such a physical reaction, I'm scared this is an OCD. And that applies to arousal. Just because you have low insight does not mean you can not be treated. Low insight is just fear associated with what feels so real to you. And so for me, when I had low insight, when all of this was going on, I just had to do the work and trust the process, right? And eventually, in doing the work, even if I didn't believe that it was going to help, eventually I started again to see the two pulling apart. I'm not going to tell you that you aren't going to always have shame or all these feelings again when this stuff comes up. But what you're going to start to realize is that the same things come up all the time. And you can forgive yourself. I hate using that word, but I am. You can forgive yourself for having these because it isn't who you are and it's not what you wanted. And B, there is such a thing as healthy guilt and unhealthy guilt and shame, right? And the healthy guilt is, I wish that I hadn't had that. I wish I'd never watched porn. I wish that this, but you can't do anything about it now. But all you can do is see that and have compassion for yourself at the time. Unhealthy guilt is, I don't think that for the rest of my life, I should ever experience happiness because of something that happened or porn that I watched or that I had this arousal and all of that. That's unhealthy and that's not serving you. So please go and watch that video that we did. There's 2 of them on my YouTube channel, and I think it would be helpful. And yes, just to answer your question and that huge thing, I can relate. And I still can relate. Sexual intrusive thoughts always get in my dreams. I have orgasms to them. It's terrifying sometimes. I have the groinal, all of it. I get butterflies, things like that, that makes me feel confused of. And so, yeah, you are not alone with this. And I would just definitely, I actually have a POCD group that's starting up soon. So if you ever wanted to jump in, just email me and let me know. Okay. Why does it feel like I like and want the thoughts even though I don't? So I'll just to go off of what I just said, this is a really common and I hate it, because I hate it for you and I hate it for all of us, because what can happen sometimes, and I talk a lot about this on my YouTube channel, actually, what can happen is that we start to identify with the feelings that we need to believe that the themes aren't real and to believe that this is actually OCD. So let's get into the motions part, because I know that this is probably going to apply to everybody. We'll take so let's say you have intrusive thoughts about incest, right? Let's say you are horrified by these thoughts, but what you need is to feel the feeling of disgust. Okay, as long as I feel, the feeling of disgust, I know I don't want the thoughts. And then I know I won't act on the thoughts, and I'll know that this is OCD. We cannot trust feelings when it comes to OCD because feelings are part of the process. They're part of the pattern. And so when you start relying on a feeling, it's compulsive. So if I'm relying on disgust, let me tell you what's not going to show up. Disgust. Because it is, in a way, you somehow habituate to it. But also, if we don't want to get in the mechanism of all of it, but if your brain perceives that there's a threat when there's not, because that's OCD, right? When it perceives that, it is going to override anything and everything that you're trying to tell it with compulsions that threat isn't real, because that part of your brain's job is to keep you safe. So if it thinks, oh my gosh, incest and incest is bad, I need to warn you about this, it's going to use any and all means for you to continue to engage. So if you're like, no, I have disgust, so this isn't real, that part of the brain is going to go, you want to bet? Well, then I'm going to make you feel like this because we need to remind you of this threat. They're working in opposition. That part of the brain and your ability to try to outprove or not prove or prove that it's right or wrong, it's working in opposition. That's why treatment for OCD is reducing the compulsions, because now what you're doing is you're pulling away. I'm not doing compulsions anymore. So you stop that part of the fight, and eventually this one will go away as well. So I don't know if that visual helps. Like when you were doing compulsions, you were like this with that part of the brain. And what you have to stop the fight by stop fighting. And that is preventing the response, preventing the compulsions. So the short answer to that long answer is your brain is eventually going to start to convince you you like it and you want it because it wants you to engage in the cycle. So you have to start learning the patterns and understanding, and you cannot rely on feelings to be able to prove or disprove. I know it's natural and we all do it, but eventually those feelings are going to turn and you're going to start thinking that you actually want the thoughts. This is so, so, so common, by the way. You're not alone in this. Lots of people go through this. Okay. Y'all are probably like, Chrissy, stop. We got 18,000 questions. Okay. Can OCD come out of nowhere? I've never experienced anything like this before. And 6 months ago, I woke up and started having intrusive thoughts daily. I consider them harm or pure OCD. I know you've probably Googled this. So you are asking for reassurance. I will just refer back to my story. I had no OCD at all, and out of the blue, it came on. And I'm gonna tell you why answering this question is reassurancy, right? Because if I say it comes out of nowhere, then someone that's kind of always had like thoughts or something is gonna go, oh my God, mine didn't come out of nowhere, so that must mean I don't have OCD. That's why reassurance is very tricky. But I will say, despite what your OCD, how it is, what age you got it, what themes you got first, whether you have tons of themes or whether you've always had one theme and that proves or disproves anything, you will have OCD, moving forward. But there is, I live a life where I have OCD and it shows up on a daily basis, but I see it, I don't interact with it, and we're all right. I have a productive, happy life. It isn't always like that, right? I'm not wrapping this up with a bow. I still struggle with OCD at times, but if I can do it, you can do it. And that means if I can continue to work on recovery, find what works for me, find strategies and find people, you absolutely can do it too. Okay. I've been having thoughts that sound bad. I don't want to mention it to my own therapist or in groups. Is there a way to get rid of them without having to voice them to others? I don't know how to answer that question. Mainly, I can't tell you what can and can't work for you. What I can tell you is that with a trusted therapist, if you want to work specifically on that theme to get better, you have got to tell them what it is. And here's why. They've got to structure your behavioral plan around what you're avoiding and around the compulsions. And if you don't tell them, you're going to be working on other stuff, but then you're going to be suffering at the same time. ERP is not, exposure response prevention isn't, it's something you have to go through and experience before you can kind of, conceptualize it, right? It's a behavior. It's like you have to learn how to dribble a basketball before you can tell somebody how to dribble a basketball. Does that make sense? So, if you go through it for something that's not bothering you, then you're going to come out on the other side. You really didn't get better because you got better from something that really wasn't bothering you. And now you have no idea how to conceptualize it and apply it to the one that's really bothering you. I'm going to tell you this. If it is somebody that treats OCD, whatever your theme is, they aren't going to flinch. They won't. You've got to trust the process. If that's too much for you, reach out to me. Let's do a one-on-one peer support session. Let me get you into one of my groups where, everybody talks about everything. Reach out to someone and tell someone so you can see that you can tell them, and they're not going to flinch and they're not going to make you feel shame or anything like that. And that's going to give you confidence to start to talk to other people who can actually help from a therapeutic lens. Did you ever have, are we stopping?
Sorry, Chrissy. I wish we could go on for the rest of the day, but we're close to time. And Chrissy, I'm speaking for everyone. That was so powerful and just provided me a lot of hope. And one thing that you pointed out was how OCD is really a pattern and how a lot of times we get caught up in the feelings and the emotions and it just feels real, and something that helped me through exposure response prevention is, facing that fear, even though it feels real. And so I wanted to say that if you are looking for a resource and looking to start your journey of OCD recovery, ERP exposure response prevention is a great option. And we're going to drop a link in the chat to where you can book a free 15-minute call with our team. We'd be happy to chat with you, see what resources are available in your area. And yeah, but Chrissie, thank you so much for your time. And I thought we could end also with giving your Instagram handle so people want to follow you and join your support groups. We'd love that.
Yes. And thank you to everybody. I'm so sorry I didn't get to your questions. You see now why I said that I could talk for a million years, but these are just my favorite subjects. But please reach out to me if you need support. By the way, it takes me a minute to get back to emails sometimes. So if I don't answer for a while, don't worry, I will get to it. I have all kinds of things in my practice that can help. And help meaning like support meeting other people. Take that first step, y'all. You deserve it. You deserve to meet other people. I do one-on-one peer support. So I can meet with you individually and provide you support and walk alongside you wherever you're at in recovery. It doesn't matter where. I have groups. They're actually open for registration right now. I run 8-week closed groups. You're with the same people for 8 weeks. I mean, all taboo, all intrusive thoughts. I mean, there's other things too, but I'm just saying, like, don't worry. You're not going to get in a group and nobody's going to know what you're talking about. I've had people stay in those for years. So we have people that really are welcoming, and it's very normalizing. I have an online community, and you can join this community. It's $35 a month. And with that $35, you get weekly support groups, weekly one-on-one peer support with a certified peer support specialist. I have events. I run recovery classes. We have so much stuff. There's forums there that you can talk directly to a certified peer support specialist. And you can come and go as you please. If you're struggling, come in for a month and then you can leave. And then when you're struggling again, come back in. And then also, we are doing a live or online open mic for my nonprofit coming up soon. We are looking for participants. You do not have to participate if you go, but sharing creatively their story with OCD. It's a closed event, so people have to pay to come. So it's gonna, and if you want to attend, you can just come and watch. It's $10 and all proceeds go to the nonprofit. So to follow me, I'm on YouTube at Chrissie Hodges. You'll see my hair. And then, on TikTok, and I'm new, I only have like 5 followers, y'all, but it'll be fun. TikTok, on Substack, which is where I've started to blog. On Instagram, I'm at Pure O Chrissie. And then on Facebook, I'm at Treatment for OCD Consulting. You can follow me there. I don't do a lot on there. But for my community, go to ChrissieHodgesCommunity.com to join. And then for any of my services, go to ChrissieHodges.com. So that was a lot, but I hope to see you out there, and I hope to see you in person sometimes or online. And remember, community is healing. And I know it's scary to show up, but I encourage you to take that first step. Trust me, it's been life-changing for me. And I didn't think that I had farther to go in my recovery. I thought, okay, symptoms are done and that's it. The community has been part of my healing journey deeper than I ever thought was possible. And there's nothing I want more than for you to experience that too. And thank you, NOCD,
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Thank you, Chrissie. We always love supporting you and partnering with you, and maybe we can do another event in the future with you. Chrissie's the best. And again, here at NOCD, all of our specialists are trained and specialized in OCD, exposure response prevention therapy. So feel free to, we dropped it in the chat as well. You can click on that link if you're interested in learning more. It's in the chat again. To feel free to schedule a free 15-minute call with our team. We would love to chat with you and, hopefully get you started on your journey. And again, Chrissie, we love you so much here at NOCD.
I love y'all
Love
too.
supporting you and all of your work that you do. You're doing so much for the community. And so thank you.
I'm so grateful for y'all. And thank you all that listened. I hope this was helpful. And I hope to get to meet you sometime in the future. And NOCD, love y'all so much.
Thank you guys so much. And this was a recorded event. And so I believe we're posting it on YouTube. So stick around so you can come and watch this again. Chrissie, you were so awesome answering all the questions and sharing your story. It's so powerful.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. And have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful Cinco de Mayo.
Yes. Thank you guys.